guys this episode. And at the end of the day, just share our passion. So Kyle and I drew the same tag this year, and we wanted to talk about what happened. Didn't we want to do that, Kyle?
Yeah. If there was only enough time to do it.
Yeah, because we hunted, how many days?
15.
We hunted 15 days.
Yeah.
How many days did we scout?
8.
So to backtrack,
10.
Kyle and I have known each other for a really long time. We've always wanted to hunt together. He's loved hunting mule deer. I've loved hunting mule deer. So we were like, screw it, let's put in for the same units. And we ended up drawing a tag together in the same units and kind of started a bond and a good hunting friendship more than anything. So this year we're going to actually put in together and see what we can draw and see if we can do it again. Because if you guys know anything about mule deer hunting, especially archery mule deer hunting, it is unforgiving. It is a battle of the mind. So it's always better to do it with a buddy than it is to do it alone. But to take you back, we drew a Nevada mule deer tag. So this was June. June, we started scouting. I think our first scouting trip was June. Kyle couldn't go. But we drew a unit that was all high country unit. So it was, to say the least, unforgiving. There's not many roads in that unit. I mean, like literally no access. You have to drive you're very far away from anywhere you want to get. So, it's a backpack unit, which made it fun for us because we weren't in great shape. And to take you back to June, we had done some e-scouting. So Kyle was way better at e-scouting than I was, but he found some pockets and really nasty, gnarly juniper pockets that we went into. You were just using Onyx?
Yeah.
Using Onyx and found some really gnarly pockets to get into, and we ended up going in June, scouting our tail off, putting up, 4 cameras?
Yeah.
3 or 4 cameras?
Yeah. Doesn't sound like a lot though. But
yeah.
When you're limited to where you can drive like you're talking about, it's too hard to run 40 cameras when you can't drive to the camera. You gotta hike 3 miles to put a camera up.
Yep.
So.
And that's exactly right, dude. That was the first year that I've actually ever ran cameras. I never ran cameras. I know guys that run cameras, but I've never personally ran cameras. And to just jump to it, we had cameras out for how many weeks? 3 months. No, 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
7 or 8 weeks, yeah.
7 or 8 weeks. Didn't see anything good on those cameras. And I remember we were going to pull the cameras.
Yeah.
And then we're like, no, let's just let it go one more week. And that last week, which cameras had to be pulled, what is the date?
It's just that before the first tag, so before the first cow tag, which is August 1st, they have to come out on July 31st.
Yeah, so that July 31st weekend, when we went and pulled the cameras, we started looking at, or you actually went because I couldn't go that time.
Yeah, Justin and I.
Yeah, so you went, pulled that camera, and you found one buck in a little remote pocket in the pinions. And if any of you guys have hunted pinions before, it's hell because they're just, you can't glass them, like it's so difficult. And what did that buck end up turning into? He was a 6x4.
Yep.
Probably a mainframe 170 class buck.
Yep.
With extras.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not very old, maybe 4 years old? Probably 4 years old.
He's young.
Yeah, probably 3-4 years old. So this year he's going to be
a big deer.
Yeah, and we know that,
especially with a light winter.
Exactly, and genetics in there because of the buck that was killed.
Not far away.
Probably right around that same.
Area.
See, he's probably the same genetics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll drop a picture in here of what that buck looked like, but we found that buck, and we dedicated the entire first. How many days? 7 days.
Well, we were there for the first trip. We were there for 9 or 10. So yeah, the first 7 days.
Yeah. So first 7 days, and there was a couple other good bucks in there.
Mm-hmm.
We called one the lobster buck. We called one. What else was the other?
Well, the one buck was called Black Magic.
Black Magic was the big 6x4.
I'll tell you later why we called him Black Magic.
Yep.
And then there was Pretty Boy.
Pretty Boy was the 4-point.
And then
with the crab claw though. He had a crabby kind of front.
No, not Pretty Boy was the tall buck.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be freaking a stud.
Yeah,
dude, he's gonna.
Maybe not this year, but next year.
I don't know, man. He might put on some inches this year too. He could. I mean, deer blow up.
He was one of those most like beautiful, typical, not very wide, but just tall, deep forks. Like gonna be a hammer.
He's gonna be a freaking giant.
Yeah. So he was a cool buck to watch, and then we had the Blade Buck brothers.
Yep, which were essentially just, they could have been twins. I mean, my dad thought maybe they were they're definitely the same genetics, but they could have been from the same exact breeding.
They looked like the same exact deer, except the one's
left side was the fork.
Yeah, and then the other side, on the other buck, was the other fork, but same genetics.
And then the crab claw buck, which had big, giant backs.
Big backs.
And even kind of nice fronts, but they were super long and crabby.
Yeah, because you get some of those 4 points that have like the weak fronts, right? Yep. And they have no length on their main beam, but he at least curled in. So he would have scored better, I think, than we thought.
Just like a crab.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have pictures of all of those. I'll drop those in here. But so we saw all those bucks, and we had been scouting. We scouted out, I mean, really no other spots. We went into one real shitty hellhole before season started, which we saw some potential, but we didn't want to make that hike for what we saw, especially from where we were looking.
No.
And when season started, we went into the spot where Black Magic was from what we found on the cameras that week earlier. We devoted 7 days in there.
To find that buck.
To find that buck, which we saw him the day before season started. How was that? The day before? Yes? It was...
No, because we went in there with Blaine and we never found him. He wasn't with those bucks. We found him the weekend after we pulled those cameras. We went in there to look for him and saw him that first morning we saw him. It was the first buck we saw.
And we got to watch this buck literally all morning long for hours.
4 hours.
And we're just like super stoked. Ends up the weekend that season started, when we got up there, we had some guys walk in, and we'd already been camped up there for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
We had some guys walk in and literally sit right on us, and we were like, this is not cool, because we were already glassing these bucks. We've been glassing them for a couple hours first light. And so we went and talked to them, and it comes to find out they had the muzzleloader tag. But this kid was like, did you guys see any of the big deer? And we're thinking Black Magic. He's got to be thinking about Black Magic. One of his relatives had a tag in there the previous year and got on a really big buck. So we were thinking that it was the buck that we are talking about right now, which we called Black Magic, which was the 6x4 that kept us in this little pocket in the pinions trying to find him. And it ended up not being him, but thank God they had a muzzler tag, because we were hunting that spot and they bombed out. They ended up leaving, which was cool of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll come circle back around to that kid at the end of season, and it all makes sense for you guys. But season started, and we never saw Black Magic. We never saw him. He disappeared in the pinions.
No, but all the bucks he was with were still together.
Everyone.
Every single buck.
So this was 5 deer.
No.
4 deer.
Those little bucks were in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably 8 or 9 bucks, including Black Magic, before he left.
But only 3 really that we were like interested in
chasing. Yeah.
So, because of the unit, and I just want to put this out there.
I forgot about that really old buck that was in there.
Yeah. Which I was like, I might go after him.
Yeah.
Middle of the week, we decided that it's probably smart to go after that deer, because we found out really quickly that it's pretty much impossible to kill a deer in that hole with a bow. Very, very difficult to kill him with a bow, just because of the contour of the mountain. It was safety all around. They can get out of there really fast. Covered in pinions, manzanita, covered in mahogany.
But we didn't realize it until that first morning after those guys left. Shay went and stalked the bigger blade buck that we found.
Yep.
And it wasn't until he got back that we knew that, we're sitting there glassing. It's always hindsight 2020, right? We're sitting there, we're like, oh, dude, that buck's in a spot that I'd go kill that buck right now. He's in a great spot. And then it's always funny when you're behind the glass, because you can't really see the topography that whoever's going out on the stalk can see, right?
You didn't see it until the rocks are tumbling down.
It's always different. It's just like Onyx. When you look on Onyx, you can always look, but every time you get there, it's like, fuck, this is so much
That's a great road, dude.
What
the fuck, where am I at?
But when you're sitting watching somebody stalk, and you're like, dude, what is he doing? Like, he should be on top of this deer right here. And he gets back, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
Did you blew out? I forget.
No, we backed out.
Yeah, I backed out of there, because I was like, this is fucking impossible.
Because he was on a ridge, and they were across what looked like a little ravine on the other side. When I got back, I found it was like...
like double our length, double
250 yards.
Yeah. And also, this is a spot, too, where it's like, if you get on top of those deer and blow them out, they're gone. Like, very likely they won't come back, and the next possible place where they could go is either one, the pinions, like thick pinions, or two, like 4 or 5 miles away to the next big green basin.
Yeah.
So, and that's like probably 8 miles, 10 miles away from any close road. So it was like, we had to be really easy on the deer because we didn't want to blow them out.
Yeah. So I think we were in there for 7 days, and we only went on went on 2 stalks the whole entire time. Yep. But we saw the deer every day, and they were just bedding in these. But they never did the same exact thing every day.
No, they had multiple bedding areas in that little basin, but the whole basin itself was their home. So they were like all over the basin, and we were like, we had a couple ideas because there was a place that they were watering pretty consistently, but not like every morning, every night. Sometimes it was in the morning, sometimes
they water higher, and sometimes they water lower.
Yeah. So we tried a couple different tactics to get on these deer, and at the end of the day, it just didn't work out. You stalked a couple times, I stalked a couple times. We just decided, you know what? The big buck we're even looking for is not even in here, so we're going to bomb out. Yeah. And so we bombed out of this spot, and we went into a completely different area that we knew of, never been into.
Country.
Yeah, totally different country, way different country. Lower country, sage country, big, rolly benches. And we packed our asses in there. And granted, this is a backpack unit. Our backpacks were fucking full, dude. Like
100 pounds.
100-pound packs, it felt like, because there's no water anywhere. We had to pack in all of our water. So it was like a hard hunt. And we walked into this next spot, and we sat down, and we start seeing deer everywhere. Like, we couldn't not turn our glasses and see a deer.
Yeah.
But what was the problem?
They were all does. Does and fawns. I bet there's 200 does.
Probably 200 does in that spot. Like, come back in October, like Holy Haven. Yeah. There's going to be some bucks in there. Yeah.
Rut and Hart.
And I think we only spent, it was like, this we're like getting down on ourselves because we're like, man, we're spending, oh, wait a minute. We went into the other spot. Yeah. So the doe area was actually the third place we walked into. The second area, after we bailed out of the first spot, we packed in. It was a 3.5 mile walk in, and we sat down. It was the same story. We sat down, we started glassing, and there was freaking does and like a couple little bucks, but nothing that was impressive that made you want to stay there. Neither of us had the gut feeling like, oh, they're going to be in here, we could find them. It was like, we're up here. We've already been hunting for 7 days, 8 days. This is going to be a waste of time. So we pack out of there the next day. So it was pretty much...
And granted, you're talking like a 4 mile pack in with 100-pound pack.
70, 80 pounds.
Unload everything, set up 2 tent. No, we set up 1 tent.
Yeah, we set up 1 tent in that spot.
It was actually cold because we were at like almost 10,000 feet.
No, that was 10,000, that one up there.
And then we glassed in the morning and we packed up and hiked 4 miles back out. Yeah. We weren't even in there for
16 hours.
No.
Yeah, and we left and we drove to a completely different area in the unit. Like, we're like, all right, let's go try some new country. Like, forget the high country, let's go into something else, try something new. So that's what we did. We went into somewhere new in a completely different part of the unit, different range, and we found all the does. 200 does. We're laughing at each other because it just sucks. Like, every day it felt like the same thing. Pack in, pack all your shit up, kick out a dirt bed. It was uncomfortable.
We spent 3 hours kicking rocks to try to make a flat bed for the tent.
We will be back there one day though, and we'll have a nice bedding area.
And it was horrible. So it's just one of those times where you're getting later in the hunt. It's hot. You haven't slept in a bed. You're eating freeze-dried meals. It's just brutal, right? And it's that mentality and difficult. That's a huge part of the difficulty of archery hunting mule deer early season.
Yeah, especially alone. Especially alone. It's brutal.
You just talk yourself out of things.
Exactly. So that was good to have a buddy there because it was just laughing the whole entire time, joking, just like
kept
fun
morale
games.
higher.
Yeah. So we bomb out of that spot and then we go into a completely different area again, and we didn't have any luck. We saw a lot of does, we saw some little bucks, but we didn't see anything worthwhile. No good bucks. So we were pretty disheartened and discouraged, and it was like, let's just go home. we had like one more day left that we were going to be there anyways. Let's bomb home a day early. We regrouped, and then the next weekend you couldn't go.
Yeah.
That was when I shot my buck.
Yeah.
So the next weekend we go up, and I'm like, I'm solo. I wanted to try to get something done. I didn't really have hopes for getting something done, but I went into the same spot him and I were in a couple weeks, like one weekend earlier where we ended the season, and I just figured I'd give it a little bit more time. Went up there, and did we glass that at all before? We didn't ever scout that.
No,
never scouted that. So I went into there alone, and this was a little bit better of a spot to go solo because you didn't have to walk in so far, so you could actually drive your vehicle up quite a ways to the top, like 3/4 of the way to the top, and then you can walk in and glass.
It's stuff we stayed away from early because we knew that there was going to be too many people.
Too many people driving around on side-by-sides, and that was actually really true. Because every time we went up there was always somebody or a couple people on their side-by-side driving around.
Time. Yeah.
But I woke up that morning, ran into another hunter up there. His name's Marco, which I'll plug him in a minute. But I ran into another hunter up there. I kind of felt bad because when I got up there, I didn't recognize that he was glassing the same area, but he was kind of down off this big finger at the bottom of it glassing. And I just got there and it was too late to move, set up my tent on the top of this total crappy spot. And I was like, this is going to have to do for now. I'll figure it out in the morning. And it was cold the entire time I got there. Like, it was a chilly weekend. Even in Reno, it was going to be chilly that weekend. And I wake up in the morning and it's just kind of slowly drizzling. And that night when I actually started glassing, I saw some bucks because a cow herder or a sheep herder was up there. Yeah. And he had pushed some sheep into a new basin, and I saw some deer down low that I think the sheep herder busted out of this top basin. And they were just coming into this canyon where I was at to try to maybe find a new home and get away from that sheep herder, because there was probably 75, 80 sheep, maybe more up there at that time. And when I sat up in the morning, I started glassing, and I found the buck I ended up killing. I found him, I found a 3x4 and some other bucks, 8 or 9 bucks total. And I found him at 6:45, and it was so cold that whole day that I watched them until 12:45. They didn't even bed until around 1:30, and they didn't know where to bed. Like, they went around to a couple different trees, a couple different areas, didn't know where to bed, came back, and finally found their bed for what would be only a few more hours. And originally, I didn't know if I was going to go in there after them, and my whole thing was talking to Marco. If I didn't want to go after these bucks because I was looking for something special, then I'd let him go. And we're sitting there talking, and I'm looking at the buck that I ended up killing, and I'm like, you know what? He looks mature. Like, this has been a shitty-ass year anyways. Like, really difficult to get on deer. I will
not a
go
lot of
after
mature
him.
deer.
Yeah, not many mature deer, a lot of younger deer. And that buck, when I was glassing him up, I'm like, all right, he's probably 28 inches wide, and he's not going to be that great because he had these crappy little front forks, but I was like, whatever. Like, I'd be happy with him. So I jam over, and I had to still stock and just go in solo because nobody was there to like be on the glass and look and radio me and see where I'm at. So I kind of just thought, Hail Mary, maybe I'll get on and maybe I won't. I didn't know exactly where they were. They laid up in this big dark pinion patch. I guess it's dark timber up there. It's not really pinions, it's dark timber. It's tall, dark timber, it's high country timber. And like a big shale face and high country, classic high country archery where they live. And so I went down in there and I stalked. I mean, it was what I think I did a thing on my watch, and it was like 4 miles to where they were at, right around there, like 3.5, 4 miles to where they were at. Slow stalked in there, got to the top of the pinions just like I thought, and I started just scooting on my butt all the way down and glassing as I did it, and boom, there was a buck, and it was the 3-point. That was the second buck that I recognized once I got over there that was a lot bigger than I thought he was. I didn't give him the justice because he had this gnarly 3-point, that hook. And I was like, maybe if I could get on him, I'd take the shot. And I ranged him, and he was only 71 yards in the trees. So he got up. I don't know if he thought something was going on, but he got up, and there was some forked horns with this group as well, and then the buck that I wanted to get. So 2 forked horns. Or 3 forked horns, a 3-point, and then the buck that I ended up shooting. And I kept glassing, and I find the buck that I was going to go after, ranged him, 71 yards, and he's laying down in a spot that I thought I could get to. And I was like, perfect, 73 yards, or 71 yards, whatever it was. I remember ranging him. I made a little prayer to myself. I draw my bow, and I let the arrow go, hit my release, and all I see is my arrow bury into a branch because I didn't compensate for the trees and the arc of my arrow. And it just buries into this branch and just goes snap, and all the deer get up and they're like on edge. And thank God it was where it was, because I feel like if I would have had that scenario happen anywhere else, it would have just been
gone.
It would have been gone. Yeah, dude, because they would have ran off. But I think all those branches snapping there all the time
with the wind.
So they just kept going. But that got all the deer up, to say the least, and they all started kind of walking around in this big ravine and started feeding. And I walked down. I'm kind of like playing cat and mouse with these deer, going back down the hill. And he gave me another opportunity to shoot. I drew my bow. It was 70-something yards. Let it go again. Same exact thing happens. Smack! Crack! All the deer get on edge, but the 3-point, he just didn't even care. Just kept eating away. And I'm like, my heart is going through my chest. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, this got to be my buck, you know? They haven't blown out yet. Like, this is a sign. And they kept moving down this big canyon, down this big ravine, and I play cat and mouse. I knock another arrow. I only had 2 arrows left. And I get all the way down to this little rock, and this baby pinion's coming up. And I could see this deer's horns in the bottom of the canyon. The forked horns are up in this little sage flat, maybe 45 yards away. The 3-point is maybe 85 yards away. And then the buck that I was going after, he's 70 yards away. And he's in the bottom of this ravine. And I remember ranging a rock, and there was a rock that was in front of me, and I just stepped up on that rock, and I knelt down. It was 71 yards, and I was like, when he gets to the other side of that, I'm just going to let it rip. And I drew my bow. It was all open. He was walking pretty much straight away, so I knew that was not going to be the greatest shot. But I just put him behind the back rib and went straight through him. And to make the story even better, it was fucking the worst weather you could ever want archery hunting. The wind was coming in 100 miles an hour, and in the high country, when you get a dark sky, it gets pretty nerve-wracking. And I seen this deer. I know the arrow went right into him. I thought it was a decent shot. I didn't really have anybody there to tell me whether it was a great shot or not. And so I made the decision to just back out because I didn't know. I went down in there and I didn't find but a little bit of blood. And so I ended up hauling ass getting back to my tent because it's starting to rain. Crappiest weather you could imagine, never want. You got that gut feeling just like, oh, fuck, dude.
Can't
like,
sleep.
Yeah, did I get him? What the hell happened? Thank God Marco was there. Because Marco was cool enough to hang out, and he actually saw the last place where that deer was at. And I'm so grateful for Marco, because without Marco, I don't even know if I would have found that deer. So it is really good to have an extra set of eyes. I don't care if you're going to go in and stalk a deer, make sure your shot is perfect. Because in that scenario, I did a kind of a field judge and I left him, but if he didn't have eyes on the last place where he was, I don't think I would have found him because that hill was just so gnarly.
Yeah.
But I ended up going to bed that night. I remember texting you and David, telling you guys, yep, shot a buck yesterday, and you were like, damn it, I wish I could have been there because that was the one weekend you weren't there. But I told him the situation. I was like, the gnarliest storm is coming, dude. Like, it was hailing, snowing, hailing.
And remember, this is like August.
And I remember I have pictures I'll tap into this video. I remember waking up, or didn't even sleep. I remember it was like 1 a.m. and I'm just freezing my ass off.
Because your tent was laying over on top of you.
Yeah, tent was totally on the side like this. Snow piled up on the side of my tent. And I mean, I woke up in the morning to a 1/4 foot of snow. Like, it was intense. I mean, it was gnarly. I was not prepared for that one bit. So we got all this snow. We're totally socked in fog in the morning. I can't see anything, so zero visibility. My heart is just like, or my gut is just the crappiest feeling. And I'm working my way back down, and I run into Marco again. And, he was staying up there because his truck was kind of up high. And it was like, dude, I got nothing else going on today. I'll definitely help you out. We'll go in there and try to find this deer. And it was like, thank God for him, So I went back, dropped all my gear at my truck on my quad. Thank God my quad started. Around 11 o'clock, drove back up, ran into Marco, and then we walked in and we just started scouring this hillside. and scouring this hillside, and Marco ended up finding my deer piled up, not maybe, 150 yards probably from where I shot him.
Which is crazy to think about because you have no blood to follow, right?
Nope.
It probably looks totally different.
It was
in
full
the snow.
Snow, dude, there was nothing to review where it was really at. It was just... And he was below me. I remember walking up to him. I remember Marco was a little bit below me, and I was up higher, and I was in a completely different area. Like, I was going to a completely different spot from where the deer actually died. And Marco was like, dude, there's your deer right there. And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, like, without him, I would have never found him. I would have spent hours because I was going up to the next cut. And I remember walking up on him, and Marco helped me out of that shithole, which was just amazing. I mean, thank you, Marco. We've actually built a friendship, and I'm grateful for him, grateful for you. But that kind of leads us to you, man. So that weekend, I shot my buck. I got back home. Everyone was all pumped up and excited about it. He ended up being 28 inches wide, which is cool.
He's a big, heavy, old buck.
Yeah, he was cool.
If you set that deer's teeth, and I bet you he was 7.
Probably, somewhere in there. But it was cool. Got him, and then we came back. And I was like, I think I made the recommendation. I'm like, let's just go back up there, dude. We went back up into that same spot, and you could tell him from here. And what happened? I mean, we went up to the sheep herder area.
Yeah, what did we do that first night we got there? I think we went up
to the very top.
Yeah, but we glassed before getting up there. Some other stuff.
Didn't see shit.
So we're like, okay, well, let's go up to this other stuff, which is even past where they had went the weekend before.
Yeah, it was actually quite a ways. It was almost at the top.
Yeah, and so we got up to the top. We glassed, didn't find a deer.
No, not even a doe.
No, not a deer.
Yeah.
And later that night, we ended up seeing the sheep on the other side, and so automatically the thought was like,
shit.
Dude, like, we don't have a lot of time. This is kind of like a 2-day trip.
Last weekend.
Second to last, yeah.
Was it the second to last?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because his brother-in-law
No,
actually picked up a tag on the first come, first serve.
Yep.
And couldn't leave when we left, so he bombed out later that night.
Friday night, got there.
Yeah, so after we glassed, we had dinner.
Yep.
Hung out. He bombed down to pick him up, came back up.
Got there at 1 o'clock. Saw that dog. My brother-in-law driving back, dude. There's all those coyotes and this Great Pyrenees, which is the sheepdog, probably 2 or 3 miles away from the sheep. Just blood all over his face. Like he was having at it with those coyotes and tearing into them.
Crazy.
Good, yeah.
So woke up the next morning. We were on a pretty good knoll. I mean, we're far enough away where you can kind of walk away from camp, sit down, and glass. Right?
Yeah. We glassed this basin, that basin, that basin.
You're on a knoll where you can do that, right? You can look here, you can look here, you can walk down here, look into a new spot, and we didn't see a deer.
No, we did. I saw that one little buck at the very bottom, and didn't want to give it any time. I don't want to look at him.
It was just nasty, shitty, like, and he was in the bottom of it.
Very bottom.
Like, you're losing 2,000, 3,000 feet elevation before you get to where they are.
And it was shithole. It was all mahogany.
So it's hard to want to spend more time glassing stuff like that when we were in there the night before. We didn't see any deer. When we were in there towards the end of our first trip, we didn't really see any deer in there. So we spent a little bit more time in there, and then we bumped back down to where Shay killed his buck. We're like, okay, let's look back into there. Let's get a little closer. Yeah.
Didn't see any deer.
See if we... No, because that's the morning we came down, we sat on a knoll, we glassed. We were about to pack up and walk down, and then you found a buck.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up finding a couple more, and they were little bucks, but because his brother-in-law was with us...
Oh, yes!
It was his first...
That was awesome!
Yeah, his first archery hunt, his first big game hunt ever.
Yeah.
Right? And this dude's an animal, like... Miles is a beast, so
we've never told him this, but we're sitting there and we're like, first ever stalk, we're like, this is not gonna happen, dude.
Yeah, it's a waste of time, but everybody's been there, right?
Yeah. Let him go.
He's gonna go blow this deer out. It's gonna be good for him. And
right where I shot my deer, too, like literally right there,
just below
it. Yeah.
So we sat there and we had a good laugh and we watched him and he
got close.
It was a long fucking hike and he did really, really well.
Yeah.
Got up around, got underneath him, had the wind right, and it was just another one of those situations where
Well, Kyle and I were screwing off. We're not even paying attention. We didn't even know where the deer was, Miles. We're like, we're laughing. We're sitting back.
We were actually guessing. We're like, dude, he's got to be in this fucking canyon. When Miles comes up and over, he's going to be in there. And Miles radioed us, and he's like,
dude,
there's no deer in here. And we're like,
no, there is. And
he's in there.
Yeah, he kept looking.
Can't not be in there.
Oh.
And so we're like playing scenarios in our head. He's here, he's there. While Miles is 4 miles away.
Yeah, we didn't even know where he was.
And then
what happened is when Kyle and I weren't on the glass, this deer got up and walked down like
while we were taking a piss or something.
Yeah, I went and laid down underneath another tree. Thank God I found him.
Took eyes off him.
And then Miles actually went in there and got pretty close. Like
25 yards.
Yeah, I think
maybe less,
it was
actually.
That. Yeah. We thought it was close. We thought it was further than it was.
Yeah, it's just another one of those topography things when you're on the glass and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. Because he was so close when you were glassing. You're like, dude he's got to see that buck. Like, stop moving and just look for him.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know is that it was another one of those things where there was just enough of a roll that...
It was steep, though. It was way steep,
that he couldn't see him. So it was just hard to tell. He did really, really well. He got up close, but as soon as he peeked his head up over that buck, picked him up and blew him out. But it was awesome. Great stalk. A lot of fun to watch.
And that pretty much wrapped up the day.
That
night we glassed.
And it was nothing. Yeah. He hiked back, we glassed, and...
I remember waking up in the morning. Didn't we stay up high and we glassed?
Yeah, and me and Miles walked down and looked into some totally new country.
Yep.
You went another way and glassed all the way across, and you ended up finding some deer. Nothing that was worth it. But we were like, okay, well, there's deer.
Yep.
So that night we went back, and it was just a shitty night because you're like, your morale's low.
Yep.
You're frustrated. You're 12 or 13 days into the hunt at this point.
Yep.
And it was so windy that night, and all this fine dust was blowing into our tents.
We could be laid in a cow area. That was dumb.
And so it was just a miserable night.
Yeah.
Wake up the next morning. We knew exactly what we were going to do. We walked up and over a hill, sat down in a good spot where we could glass totally different country. Mm-hmm. And we glassed
all morning.
And we actually, not far away on a ridge that was probably like 500 yards away, saw some deer, but the way the sun was shining, it was really tough to see them. And by the time the sun cleared, these bucks had walked over the hill.
Yep.
And it was one of those situations where you're like, do I put all my eggs in one basket and go find out what they are? Or do we just
Because we knew one was a buck for sure. And bachelor groups, probably a couple bucks, but we didn't know
what it was. It could have been.
We could have been the 3-point that I thought we were going to find those deer.
It could have been.
But we ended up, actually, funny enough though, it wasn't because Marco found those deer on the backside the next
weekend.
The next day after I shot my buck because he killed his buck.
Oh, okay.
So
we did that. We kept glassing, and it was just getting. This is Sunday, right? So we're going home today.
Yeah.
And it's getting to that time where it's like 10:30, 11. It's getting hot, and you're not finding bucks. And when you're looking at distance, the rays, and you're like, dude, I can't see anything. And so inside, I'm like,
we're done. I'm gonna have to come back next
weekend. I'm gonna have to come back again. We're gonna have to grind. Shay couldn't come the next weekend, so I was like, dude, this is gonna be brutal.
Yep.
And then out of nowhere, Shay picked this buck up. Somehow.
Wait, say that again?
Somehow. He picked this buck up. Long ways away, probably 4 miles across. Maybe not quite that far, but it was far. But all you could see was his horns. I'm pretty sure he turned his head, and that's how you saw his horns.
Yeah, it was a luck thing. It was just like, threw your glasses up, and then right where my glasses were, boom, like, you just see this buck's frame. And we start looking, I'm like, dude, that's a nice buck. Like, this is going to be a good buck. Mm-hmm. And there was another buck below him.
Yeah.
And then another buck way up high above him. So I think 2 of those bucks could have been really nice bucks. The one you shot.
I saw the other one. He was same.
No, you didn't see the other
one. Oh, the lower one. No, I didn't.
The way exactly.
Yeah. But we're trying to. It's hard, right? It's the middle of the day still, so it's really hard to tell what. Like, you could tell he had a good frame, but I couldn't tell. And I wasn't hunting to just kill a buck, right? So we were with Miles. If it was a good opportunity for him, I almost let him go and kill this buck because I was like,
thank God you didn't.
Yeah. So we looked at him a little bit more, ended up getting some good videos so I could tell what he was. I was like, okay, that's
But you
a
were
buck.
getting excited about it.
Yeah, I did.
You were like,
I
dude,
did.
this is nice.
Yeah,
this is
because
nice.
he was in a good spot.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we can tell what it looks like from here.
We honestly thought that he might be like a 170 something class buck because he's the most pretty typical buck that you have probably ever seen. You've never seen a buck.
No deductions.
Dude, no deductions. Like, you turn him symmetrical both ways.
You can't see his other side.
You can't see his other side. Like, he's that symmetrical.
Yeah. So.
And he could have been a lot bigger deer maybe the previous year. Or even the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
Because
he was a big
body deer. But he was a giant body deer.
Yeah. So I grouped up, grabbed my pack.
I drove you down
got
to the
my
bottom.
water, drove me to the bottom, and then I had it was
hike.
a shitty hike. It was
dude.
like 3.5 miles, but your first mile is straight up.
Like, you have to gain 2,800, 3,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
It's like
in
just
a mile. Maybe 3/4 of a mile, actually.
it's a lot, but yeah. There's a lot of elevation,
yeah.
not a huge distance. But
Yep.
it sucked.
So, but it's funny, right? When you go on these stalks and your adrenaline's going and you're excited for the end picture because you know where you're going. So you actually get up that hill a lot quicker than you
Yeah, it only
anticipate
took about an hour and a half.
doing. So I got up to the top, took a break, and then I got on the back side of this ridge to stay out of sight.
Yeah, because he's kind of like, this is a big flat with all these like cuts in it.
A lot of big rim rock cuts.
Yeah, rim rock. It was rim rock, and then it was just sage, tall sage.
Big sage, like
Big, yeah.
4 feet tall.
Like the bed, the deer bed is fucking giant.
Yeah. So I got on the backside. I slowly worked my way, and I would check in every once in a while. We had check-in points. Like, hey, when I get to this point, I want to check in with you, make sure the deer's still there, so I'm not wasting my time. And we got to a point where I was pretty close to being on top of him.
Yep.
So I took my pack off. I left my boots on, and I got on my hands and knees and crawled to the edge. But we couldn't tell that this hill rolled super bad. So, I mean, there was no seeing this deer from that point. Unless you walked on top of him, it would have been a disaster. So I backed out, got on Onyx, found a better route, and I looped around him. Because this time I'm thinking about the wind, right? It's 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Like
I should have, yeah, it probably was 12:30.
Because you got in on him around 12:30,
So,
1 o'clock.
I was like, I should have good thermals at this point if I come in from this way. There's a little hill right here that should help where the wind's coming up. So I got there, took my boots off, and started stalking.
It only took you 25 minutes maybe to get over to him.
Yeah, so it was nice where they bedded, because where they bedded was in a little bowl, and then there was a rim rock edge that put me elevated from them, so I was kind of on top of them. And I got up there, and it
was a perfect scenario.
Yeah, at first I couldn't find him, and then he stood up.
Like,
right as I got there.
Right when he got to the spot where it was like, you need to be right here, Kyle, for you to be able to shoot this deer.
Yeah.
Literally, the minute that he got there, the deer stands up. And we thought, oh shit, it's over. Because the deer immediately gets up, we're glassing him, and the deer starts walking away. But for Kyle, it was perfect.
Yeah. But the hard thing was, too, the wind was kind of weird, right? When you get those little bowls with a ridge in the middle, the wind was actually kind of blowing sideways at me towards the deer. So inside, I was like, in a different scenario, I probably would have backed out for a minute, but it was the end of it. It was go time, right? Yeah. So thankfully, I got up on that ridge, and the wind was actually doing the same thing for that deer, and the wind was kind of meeting at that ridge, so it didn't matter. But that deer stood up, and I ranged him, and he was 48 yards. And you're shaking, you're like, calm yourself down. I take my quiver off my bow because I don't like shooting with my quiver on.
Because you suck.
I mean. We'll talk about who missed 3 times and who didn't. But I calmed down for a second. He takes a couple steps. I range him again. He's quartering away. It's super, super, super hard. But again, the wind was doing kind of weird things, so I didn't want to wait. So I drew, took a deep breath, and I took a quartering away shot, and I
smoked.
You hear that like thwack. And immediately, I didn't even watch him. I went to grab another arrow. I had it knocked. I was ready to draw again. And he ran
15 yards. Yeah.
He died in like 12 seconds. It was the most perfect quartering away shot because it hit just behind his ribs.
And went straight into
buried right into him. And that deer was dead.
Yeah.
Fast. And it was such a relief off my shoulders. You hear the guys on the radio like, he's down, he's dead, congratulations, and inside you're like, thank God, right? Like this came together, the pieces came together. 15 days, 115 miles on backpack, literally 150 miles.
Yeah.
So crazy.
We hunted the entire season. We put in all the time. And then this is the craziest thing. So after we both get our bucks, we get home, muzzleloader season happens. And my buddy, Marco, the guy that I ran into, I'm talking to him. He's like, dude, you should see the buck that my friend shot. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, he was up there during muzzleloader season. He sends me this picture of the kid that him and I ran into on opening day that was like, did you guys see the big deer? And this deer is probably, what, 225, 230?
He's a giant, yeah.
Giant, non-typical, just... And the crazy thing was, we put it together and where this deer was at from the photo.
From Onyx, right?
We were not even 5 miles. Not even 5 miles from where this guy killed this deer. And he was just a pinion buck. He shot him down low. We would have never found him.
Yeah, and I never would have looked for him, honestly. It's not in a spot where there's feed. It's not in a spot where there's water.
Well, that could stay for another day.
Shit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But crazy experience.
Awesome.
It's one of those things, one of those hunts that you learn a lot.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about where to look for deer, a little bit more about deer's habits, a lot more about what you did wrong and what you did right.
Yep. Well, it was a good season. We put in again this year together. We'll come back. I'll get my wife on here. We had a muzzleloader hunt. He went on. It's just a totally different story. But we'll talk about that another day. But you guys stay tuned in. We're going to be doing this like maybe once a week, at least once a month for sure.
Yeah.
The Mule Deer Junkie Podcast. So
more stories to come.